Michael Murray, and this is the challenge problem for the biology project. The challenge problem reads, a couple composed of a biological male and female, Johnny and Moira, both of whom present no genetic conditions, decide to have a child. The expectant mother has a brother who has hemophilia, an X-linked recessive condition. The parents of Moira do not have hemophilia. Part A. Determine the genotypes of Moira's parents. Support it with evidence. Part B. Draw out a pedigree with the genotypes indicated next to the symbols for Moira's parents, Moira, her brother, and Johnny, who is the biological father. Part C. Determine the likelihood that the child of Moira and Johnny will have hemophilia, assuming that Moira is a carrier for hemophilia. Be sure to indicate the biological sex of the child and support it with evidence. Circles represent biological women, squares represent biological men. Filled in circles and squares represent people who have hemophilia, and open circles and squares are people who do not have hemophilia. Because this is we're dealing with dominant and recessive genes and genotypes, hemophilia and hemophilia is recessive. Little r will represent genes that have, or X genes that have hemophilia, and a big R will represent X genes or genomes that do not have hemophilia, and the big R are dominant and the little r is recessive. Part A, determine parents' genotype. So we can do this by using Moira's brother. Moira's brother's genotype has to be X chromosome with a little r and a Y chromosome because he is a man. He got the Y chromosome from his father, and because his father does not have hemophilia, his X chromosome must be dominant. So it has a big R, as seen above Moira's father. This is Moira's mother, this is Moira, this is the brother, and this is Johnny, and then their child, Moira's and Johnny's child. So that is the genotype for Moira's father. The genotype for Moira's mother is a little bit more complicated. So the X chromosome that Moira's brother has, he inherited from his mother. The X chromosome has to have a little r because Moira's brother has hemophilia. And since he inherited that X chromosome from his mother, at minimum one of her X chromosomes must have a little r. And it's like, and because she does not have hemophilia, her other X chromosome must have a big R. And that's why her X chromosomes are big R and little r. Now we have to figure out or fill in the pedigree, which I made previously, and fill it in with all of the genotypes for every person. So we've already done Moira's brother and Moira's parents, so now we just need Moira and Johnny. I'll start with Johnny. So Johnny does not have, or Johnny's a man, so he has a Y chromosome, and his other chromosome will determine whether or not he has hemophilia or not. He doesn't have hemophilia, so he has to have an X chromosome with a uh, dominant gene, so big R on the X chromosome. Moira is a little bit more complicated. She doesn't, or she inherited she has two X chromosomes. One of them inherited from her mother, and one of them inherited from her father. Her father's only X chromosome is a dominant has a dominant gene for hemophilia. That so I'm going to start that. Okay. The X chromosome of her father has a big R, and since it's the only X chromosome her father can pass to her, that accounts for one of the X chromosomes. Because the X chromosome has a big R and is dominant, and and the big R signifies not having hemophilia. And since it's dominant, it means that Moira herself doesn't have hemophilia, but she could still be a carrier for hemophilia. We can't determine that because we don't know which of Moira's mother's gene or X chromosomes she inherited. So there's a 50% she inherited the big R and 50% for the small R. So there's a 50% chance that she is a carrier for hemophilia. And that's why I wrote a dash here, because it's impossible, given this pedigree and this limited amount of information, to determine what her actual genotype is 100%. That's part B. Part C is to determine what's the likelihood that a child of Moira's and Johnny's will have hemophilia. So what we do is we use a Punnett square to figure out what are all the combinations of chromosomes that Moira and Johnny can pass to their children. So since the father's assuming this is a big assumption, but this is the part of the problem. Assuming that Moira is a carrier. So in this situation, Moira has an X chromosome with a big R and an X chromosome with a little r. And Johnny, as for part B, has an X chromosome with a big R and a Y chromosome, because he's a man. So if the child is a boy, then the father, Johnny, will give him his Y chromosome, seen here, Y chromosomes, and the mother will give one of her two X chromosomes. Since this X chromosome is dominant, this probability represented by area, I think that's the best way to describe it. So each of these quadrants is as likely as each other, and each one of them is a 1/4 chance to happen. So if you're only looking at the boys, or at the boys, yes, then there's a 50% chance that the boy will inherit a dominant or an X chromosome with a big R, and a 50% chance for little r. Having a little r would mean that he would have hemophilia. Having a big R would mean he would not have hemophilia. So there's a 50% chance that a son will have the condition. Now, if we exclusively look at the females, the father will give, or Johnny, the father, will give his daughter his X chromosome with the dominant big R. So there's a 0% chance that a daughter will have the condition. but because there's a 50% chance that the mother will give her a an X chromosome with a little r, there is a 50% chance the daughter will be a carrier of hemophilia. And that concludes my video presentation.